Okay, so let's take a look at this bell ringer. What we need to prove is that angle 2 and angle 3 are complementary. What does complementary mean? That their sum is equal to 90 degrees. So wouldn't it be great if angle ABC was a right angle? So let's see if there's a way to show that angle ABC is a right angle. What we're given is that line J is parallel to line K, and that means that all of our rules apply. Our alternate interior angles are congruent, our alternate exterior angles are congruent. All of those rules will apply now. And the other thing that we're given is that the measure of angle 9 is 90 degrees. Does that help? So angle 9 is an alternate exterior angle with angle with angle ABC. So we know that that's a right angle now too. So if angle 2 and angle 3 together create that 90 degree angle, is it safe to say that they are complementary? Okay, so let's see if we can get this into the proof officially. So what was the given that led us to believe that angle A was congruent to angle ABC? Okay, line J was parallel to line K, gave us that angle 9 is congruent to angle ABC. And what was that reason again? If parallel lines, then alternate exterior angles are congruent. Okay. Let's write down our other given. The measure of angle 9 is 90 degrees. And then how are we going to use the substitution property to create our next step? Since 9 and ABC are the same, and 9 is 90 degrees, then so is angle ABC. Now, what was the rule about complementary? So angle 2 and angle 3 are complementary because if the sum of two angles is 90, then they're complementary. Let's take a look at the algebra problem. We know that line J is parallel to line K. We know that the measure of angle 2 is 96 degrees. And what we're and we also know that the measure of angle 7 is the opposite of 24 minus 12x degrees. So, is this one of those angle pair relationships that we know? So, there is no named relationship for these angles. So that means we're going to have like a two-step problem. If you know that angle 2 is 96, what other angles are also 96 degrees? So angle 3, angle 4, and angle 8 are also 96 degrees. Looking at this, do we have a relationship that we can create for angle 7? Or do we have an equation we can create now? So because we can use a linear pair with either 4 and 7 or 7 and 8, we can go ahead and say that those two angles are supplementary. Their sum equals 180. So why don't you guys go ahead, solve. So don't forget to distribute the negative, making that negative 24 plus 12x, and then eventually you'll get to x equals 9. So our objective today is to be able to apply the concept of perpendicular lines to solve geometric problems. What do you think perpendicular means? Perpendicular is all about the right angle. So two lines are perpendicular, and that also works for segments or rays. If when they intersect, they create a right angle, or their measure of that angle is 90. The symbol for perpendicular is an upside down capital letter T. So an example of what we could say is that line M is perpendicular to line L. And you tick mark perpendicular with the right angle symbol. Now, why did I pick that angle? I don't know. I felt like it. All of these turn out to be right angles, but you only need to show one. So don't feel like you have to mark all of them. One angle is enough. So the next problem we have, we need to find the measure of angle ABD and ABC. Our hints are that AB is perpendicular to ED, so these two intersect to form a right angle. So what is the measure of angle ABD? Angle ABD also has to be a right angle, so its measure is 90 degrees. Our next hint is something about bisect. What does bisect mean? So bisect means to split it exactly in half, or in this case, we're taking one angle and creating two congruent angles. So this angle is the same as this angle. So if we're looking for the measure of angle ABC, how about we just call that X? That means that angle CBD is also X. So X plus X equals 90. X equals 45. The measure of angle ABC is 45 degrees. Then let's take a look at the next one. Again, our hint is M is perpendicular to N, and we need to solve for X. So if M is perpendicular to N, couldn't I write my right angle there? So what's an equation we can write down? Since we know that's a right angle and these two angles create the right angle, we can say that their sum is 90. So let's solve, and X equals 70. Let's take a look at parallel lines and perpendicular lines. So we know that line Q is perpendicular to line T. So here is my right angle. Now don't forget, all of them are right angles. I'm just going to write down that you just need to tick mark one. We also know that line T, is parallel to line P. Can we find the measure of angle 9? Since we have parallel lines, we know that all of our angle pair relationships will work. So alternate interior, alternate exterior, consecutive interior, and corresponding angles are all congruent. So if that's the case, that angle 4 is a right angle, doesn't that mean that these two also intersect at a right angle? So now do you have an equation you can write? This is more of a geometry answer, just trying to show where you're putting your work, because trust me, the problems will get harder. It's good to develop good habits so that you know what to do when the problems get harder. So let's go from here. So when we solve, we'll get the measure of angle 9 is 60, and again, that comes from the fact that these two angles were corresponding angles. So let's take a look at our last problem. We know that we need to solve for x, find the measure of angle 3 and the measure of angle 5. We also know that line J and line K are parallel. So that means all of our angle pair relationships will work. Alternate interior, alternate exterior, corresponding will all be congruent, and consecutive interior will be supplementary. So we are given that angle 3 is 6x. We also know that angle 8 is 8x minus 40. Do these angles have a named relationship? So the measure of angle 3 is equal to the measure of angle 8 because they are alternate exterior angles. So let's do our substitution. And solve. So when we solve, we get x equals 20. To find the measure of angle 3, we're just going to do a substitution. So the measure of angle 3 is 120 degrees. How are we going to find the measure of angle 5? We now know that angle 3 is 120. We can use that as a linear pair to figure out what the measure of angle 5 is. So the equation we would write, the measure of angle 5 plus the measure of angle 3 equals 180, and then we can do our substitution. So we get that the measure of angle 5 is 60 degrees. And we're done.